lets himself be read is already lost.
The world does not reward purity. It rewards strategy. Most still believe that being transparent is a virtue, when in truth, it is an invitation to control. If they can read you, they can use what they read. And if they can use it, you no longer belong to yourself. You serve them. We do not live in an age of understanding, but of exposure. Everyone speaks, everyone confesses. Everyone bleeds in public, believing that sincerity will set them free. But truth frees no one. Misused truth becomes a chain. Because when you reveal too much, others do not see you. They dissect you. They classify you, predict you, reduce you. You lose the mystery, and with it, respect. That is why modern intelligence is no longer measured by how much you know, but by how wisely you conceal. It is the new form of defense, dark intelligence. It is not malice, it is calculation. It is the ability to observe without being observed, to speak without revealing, to feel without being trapped by your own emotions. The naive reacts, the wise responds, the strong calculates, and while some strive to appear good, the true strategists learn to appear empty, because emptiness confuses, and what confuses dominates. Dark intelligence does not destroy, it protects. It protects your calm, it protects your power, it protects your ability to act without anyone understanding your motives. Because he who cannot be read cannot be controlled. And in a world where everyone shows themselves, the one who hides becomes a legend. Self-control is not coldness, it is survival. And to survive today is an art reserved for those who already understood this. Light without shadow blinds, but he who masters both rules.
He who controls perception controls reality. I have seen men fall because they showed too much of themselves. They believed honesty would make them loved and only became predictable. No one fears the man who shows himself completely. Power is born of mystery, not transparency. Men claim to want truth, but they worship appearances. That is why the ruler who reveals his heart hands over his crown, and the one who shows his wound invites the blow. In my time, we called it prudence. Today, you call it strategy, but it is the same, to protect yourself in silence and strike at the right moment. I remember Cesare Borgia, who offered embraces before signing executions. And I remember those who confused mercy with virtue. They all ended either on the gallows or in oblivion. Power is not preserved by the most just, but by the most lucid. The error of modern man is not weakness. It is the need to be understood. They want to be seen, accepted, validated. And while they seek to be understood, others are reading them, measuring them, using them. The exposed soul is an open book for the enemy. And the enemy never announces when he's learned to read. Listen carefully. Goodness holds no power if it cannot disguise itself. Virtue without calculation is self-annihilation, because the world does not reward the righteous, it rewards the useful. And he who does not learn to appear disappears. When I warned that love is held by the tie of gratitude, but fear by the dread of punishment, I was not speaking of cruelty. I was speaking of balance. Affection shifts with the wind, fear endures, and the one who can inspire both rules. That is why the strategist is not defined by what he feels, but by what he projects. He must learn to wear many masks without losing his face. He must appear merciful without being weak. Appear honest without being predictable. Appear human without forgetting that unrestrained humanity destroys kingdoms. I saw cities fall not by the sword, but by misplaced compassion. I saw princes betrayed by those they forgave. I saw virtue become a grave and coldness a throne. Men forget goodness quickly, but never forget power. And in a world that applauds exposure, the true throne belongs to the one who knows how to disappear. Remember this, and carve it in your mind. You don't need to be feared by everyone, only by those who could harm you. You don't need to be loved by many, only by those who strengthen your power. The rest, let them wander in the fog. Because truth is simple, though few can bear to hear it. He who controls perception controls reality, and he who controls reality no longer needs permission to rule.
Nothing has changed. Only the scenery has. Once, princes moved through marble halls. Now they walk through glass offices and false smiles. It's the same game, only the pawns have Wi-Fi. Betrayal now comes through email. Manipulation wears the mask of empathy. And power, that same power everyone claims to hate, still controls those who pretend not to want it. The rules remain the same. He who shows too much loses. He who needs to be understood becomes manipulable. And he who fails to understand the psychology behind respect ends up begging for approval from those who secretly despise him. We live in a world that preaches transparency but rewards spectacle. They tell you to be authentic, and the moment you are, they destroy you. They tell you to show your vulnerability, and then use it as a weapon. That's why the wise man stays silent, observes and chooses when to speak, because silence, when used with intention, is the highest form of control. It's not about becoming cold, it's about becoming conscious. While you explain your intentions, someone else is interpreting them. While you seek approval, someone else is deciding your worth. And while you talk, someone else is writing your story. The game isn't dead. It's simply become more elegant, more digital, more silent. And those who don't understand that will be used, cancelled, or replaced. So remember this. Not everyone deserves to know what you think. Not everyone deserves to see what you feel. Not everyone deserves access to your truth. The world rewards strategy, not purity. Perception, not transparency. And those who understand that will never need to shout to possess power. Because true power, real power, isn't seen, it's felt.
What you describe is not new. In my time, they too pretended to admire honesty, but they followed those who pretended best. The people love truth only while it does not disturb them. That's why the wise ruler seeks not sincerity, but plausibility. The appearance of virtue moves more hearts than virtue itself, and he who understands that rules. You speak of a world that demands exposure. I lived in one that demanded disguise. But both are the same. In either, he who reveals too much dies before his time. I saw men ruin themselves believing transparency was strength. I saw others, silent, calculating, rise without saying a word. And I learned something no preacher dares to admit. Sincerity is not a virtue. It is a tool. You use it only when it serves the purpose. In Florence, the walls had ears, allies were shadows, and compassion was a trap. A prince had to appear human, but think like a wolf. For between men and beasts, only those who know when to be each survive. You speak of networks and screens. I speak of courts and conspiracies. But the stage is the same. A theater where everyone performs and the crowd applauds the best actor, not the most honest. The mistake of your time is believing that revealing everything is strength. The mistake of mine was believing that hiding everything was safety. Both forgot the essential truth. Power belongs to those who choose what to reveal and what to conceal. Remember this: there is no virtue without strategy, no transparency without danger. And silence, when conscious, is worth more than 1,000 truths screamed into the void. I hear you speak of a world that rewards exposure, of men who confuse sincerity with courage, and I smile. Because what you call modernity already existed under another name. In my time, too, there were those who stripped themselves before power, hoping that purity would protect them. But power does not reward purity. It uses it. The one who shows himself completely ceases to be dangerous. The one who keeps something, even a shadow, keeps others in doubt. And doubt is domination. The people, then and now, fear what they cannot understand. That's why silence frightens more than threat. That's why a measured gesture weighs more than 1,000 words. He who knows how to remain silent rules even when he seems absent. I saw republics fall because of a rumor. I saw men lose the favor of their people for speaking a truth no one wished to hear. And I learned that a single word can raise a kingdom or ruin it. That is why the wise do not reveal. They suggest. They do not shout. They insinuate. They do not explain. They observe. You speak of lights and screens. I speak of courts and conspiracies. But the mechanism is identical. The crowd does not seek truth. It seeks entertainment. And the one who gives them a show becomes a slave to applause. So do not be surprised if your silence is worth more than your speech. The man who controls his voice controls his destiny. And in any age, he who no longer needs to be understood is the one who truly rules.
Machiavelli spoke of courts and conspiracies. We have screens and algorithms, but the essence is the same. Man still fights to control his image. Only now he sells his soul for a click. The silence you spoke of no longer exists. We've replaced it with noise, with selfies, opinions, and half-truths. We were taught to confuse visibility with value and became addicted to being seen, even if no one understands us. The new punishment isn't betrayal, it's oblivion. That's why everyone shouts, competes, confesses, out of fear of disappearing. But they don't understand that the more you show, the less power you have. The digital world doesn't demand authenticity. It demands performance. And those who surrender to it without strategy end up hollow, a tired face behind a recycled smile. The wise man of today is not silent because he fears. He is silent because he knows every word can be turned into a weapon against him. He knows the public's attention is alone, and its interest a slow poison. In a world that no longer listens, silence has become rebellion. And in an era where everyone shows themselves, mystery has once again become power.
Nothing has changed, only the stage. Once they knelt before temples. Now they kneel before screens. But the prayer is the same. Look at me. In my time, men killed for fame, to carve their name in stone, to be remembered after death. Now they die for attention, to exist for a fleeting second in someone else's gaze. They think the modern world has enslaved them to the image, but they were always slaves to it. Power doesn't need chains. It only needs you to crave being seen. I have seen princes lose their thrones for the love of applause. I have seen wise men destroy their legacy by explaining too much. And I learned this. Reputation is a mask that feeds on your soul. The more you feed it, the less of you remains behind it. Your era didn't invent spectacle. It only perfected it. We called it court. You call it society. But the gestures are the same. The one who watches commands. The one who performs obeys. So I will tell you what I learned watching kingdoms fall. There is no greater weakness than the need to be understood. He who demands to be seen will be manipulated. He who is content with silence becomes indecipherable. And what cannot be read rules.
You were right, Machiavelli. Power hasn't changed. Only its costume. Once it wore crowns. Now it wears validation, metrics and comments. Man still wants to be watched, and the one who controls that desire controls everyone else. That's why the new kings don't sit on thrones. They sit behind screens watching others expose themselves, compare themselves, exhaust themselves. To show everything is the new form of surrender. To expose yourself without restraint is to hand your emotional map to the enemy, and he who knows your fears needs no chains to control you. Today we mistake authenticity for weakness. We call transparent the one who cannot stay silent, and cold the one who refuses to perform. But the world doesn't respect those who spill over. It respects those who contain themselves. Silence doesn't isolate you, it elevates you. It turns you into the observer in a world of actors. It gives you time, advantage, control. And when you finally speak, your words weigh more than the noise of 1,000 voices. So it's not about hiding, it's about measuring yourself, speaking when everyone screams, being silent when everyone confesses. Because the man who masters his silence no longer plays the game, he directs it. We live surrounded by masks. People change their faces as easily as they change opinions. Being authentic is no longer a virtue, it's a threat. And in a society where everyone watches everyone else, survival has become an art of adaptation. They taught us to be ourselves, but also to fit in. Please, sell ourselves. And that's where the confusion begins. A generation that feels free while living enslaved to judgment. The new disguise isn't armor, it's a filter. It makes us look better, but emptier. We polish our image, not our intent. And in trying to please everyone, we lose our own face. Adaptability isn't pretending. Pretending is forgetting who you are. Adapting is observing, understanding, and moving without losing your center. He who cannot adapt dies, but he who adapts without awareness dissolves. And there is something worse than dying, becoming invisible within yourself. True power isn't showing who you are at all times, it's choosing when to show it and why. Be water, they say, but always remember who holds the glass.
You call it adaptation. I called it survival. In my time, men also pretended, but they did it under threat of death, not of oblivion. In Florence, a misplaced word could cost you your head. The prince had to appear compassionate, even while calculating his strike. The courtier had to swear loyalty, even while plotting escape. Everyone lied, but not everyone knew why. The fool lies out of fear, the wise out of purpose, and fear can be smelled. True power doesn't pretend to hide, it pretends to direct. I saw rulers lose their thrones for showing their souls in a gesture, and traitors save their lives by holding back a single truth. Then I understood. The face of wisdom is not the one that says what it thinks, but the one that thinks before speaking. He who masters his mask masters the entire theater. For in politics, as in life, the winner is not the most sincere, but the most calculated. Do not confuse integrity with transparency. Integrity is holding to your principles in the shadows. Transparency is handing them to your enemy. And in the game of power, anything you give away without calculation will be used against you.
No one needs a royal court to pretend anymore. All they need is a Wi-Fi connection. The new throne is a screen, and masks are changed with a click. But the mechanism is the same as in your time, Machiavelli. Only now the danger isn't losing your head. It's losing your identity. The price is no longer physical death, but dissolution in the noise. People say, I'm authentic, while calculating every word, not to offend. They say, I show myself as I am, while choosing the angle that hides them best. And the worst part? They believe being seen is the same as being real. The new slave wears no chains, only the need for approval. He who fears disappearing becomes whatever the audience wants to see. But there's a turning point. When you understand that image is inevitable, you learn to use it without letting it use you. It's not about destroying the mask, but governing it. Show only what serves the purpose. Hide what preserves your control. And if you must lie, let the lie serve something higher than your ego, because power, even in this digital age, is the same as it was in Renaissance Florence. It doesn't belong to the loudest voice, but to the one who observes, measures, waits, and speaks only after everyone else has already said too much.
I have seen men braver than armies fall to a single emotion, attachment. Not to land nor to power, but to people. Love, when it becomes need, is a rope. The enemy doesn't have to pull it. He just waits for you to hang yourself. Many princes fell, not because of betrayal, but because they could not let go. They mistook affection for possession, loyalty for dependence. I saw Cesare Borgia lose everything he built, not when his enemies surrounded him, but when he believed the Pope would always protect him. He trusted blood more than strategy. And blood, once cooled, turns to ice. Love is not weakness, but the one who loves without calculation becomes a prisoner of his own heart. Power needs affection, yes, but only if you can withdraw it when the moment demands it. I learned to distrust passions, for passions rule within as tyrants rule without. The free man is not the one who doesn't feel, but the one who is not enslaved by what he feels. The one who can love without begging, give without pleading, and leave without trembling. In my time, that was the beginning of command. In yours, it is the beginning of sanity.
Today, no one dies for a kingdom, but many lose themselves for a glance. They confuse devotion with dependency, and call love the anxiety of not being forgotten. We live in an age where affection is traded for attention, where silence is seen as disinterest, and absence as betrayal. No one can stand not being needed, and that's why everyone ends up chained. Machiavelli, you spoke of princes and betrayals. I speak of bonds disguised as love. But the logic is the same. He who depends emotionally on another has already surrendered his authority. The new vassal doesn't kneel before a throne. He kneels before validation. He gives everything, fears losing, and when he loses, he collapses. Detachment isn't coldness. It's loving without ransom. It's being able to stay or to leave with the same calm. It's looking at something beautiful without needing to possess it. Attachment turns beauty into prison. Detachment turns it into freedom. He who masters his desire doesn't turn to stone. He becomes sovereign of himself. And when you master what you love, no love can destroy you. Power isn't holding on. It's being able to let go without falling apart. There comes a moment when you understand that strength is not about winning. It's about enduring without breaking. Speaking only when your words weigh more than the noise. Choosing calm while everyone else reacts. Everything you've learned, strategy, silence, detachment, was never meant to make you cruel, but to help you survive in a world that mistakes kindness for weakness. Now I know. I don't need to be feared, only impossible to manipulate. You don't have to shout to impose presence, nor destroy to prove power. True mastery is not over others. It's over yourself. When you understand your shadows, no one can use them against you. When you learn to let go, nothing can hold you. It's not about being good or bad. It's about being aware. Because only he who knows himself can walk through darkness without getting lost. And when you reach that point, people no longer understand you. They only observe you, try to decode you, and fear you without knowing why.
I have seen kings fall for their poorly measured kindness, and tyrants hold their realms through their well-calculated coldness. I have seen virtue devoured by naivety, and cunning turned to justice when chaos demanded order. The world hasn't changed, only its scenery. Men still seek affection, still fear rejection, still call destiny what is really lack of strategy. Listen to me, one last time. It's not love that destroys a man. It's his need to be loved. It's not power that corrupts him. It's his fear of losing it. The wise man does not avoid the dark. He learns to move within it. And when he emerges, his eyes see what others cannot face without trembling. So remember this. Do not fear being firm. Do not fear being alone. Do not fear being misunderstood. Fear, rather, living without strategy. Because the world does not forgive the naive. And history only writes the names of those who learn to stare without blinking. The game does not end here. It has merely shown you its first face. The rest will watch you in silence, waiting to see if you truly understood. Remember this. Men lose themselves searching for light. But power has always lived in the shadows. And when you learn to walk through them without fear, you will no longer need anyone to guide you. Because in that instant, the world will stop watching you and start fearing you.